President Trump set to make one of the biggest mistakes of his presidential career if he puts secondary sanctions on India, trying to get President Putin to the table. More on that on the Energy Newsbeat Daily Standup. $70 West Texas Intermediate returns as Trump targets India over Russian oil ties, the weak link in President Trump's plans. This is absolutely a very important story. The U.S. Department of Commerce reported a 3% annualized growth rate for the second quarter, which is huge. Well done, President Trump, getting our economy back on order. However, this uptick comes against a backdrop of escalating U.S. India friction as President Donald Trump ramps up pressure on New Delhi over its substantial imports of Russian crude. Trump's strategy aims to cripple Russia's war funding in Ukraine through secondary sanctions, and I have been warning about the alarms on targeting India would be backfire spectacularly, exposing a crucial, vulnerable problem with his broader geopolitical playbook. You take a look at the chart on this article on our Substack. India's crude oil imports by country, Russia's 45% of India's imports. And if we put a secondary sanction on this, it is going to trigger in about 3 different ways. India's refineries also sell gasoline and diesel back to the EU. That's going to spike and rotate up higher prices there. Oh, who else also buys from India? We just tracked a tanker for California buying diesel from Russian oil, going to India, and then went to California. This is absolutely going to be a gigantic disaster. President Trump, if you or your staff are listening to this podcast, do not listen to Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham should be ignored. Do not put secondary sanctions on India for this purpose. I've got a chart in here on how it works out. Brent prices to go to $90 to $100. That's a possibility. Russia's response, potential revenue loss of 10 to 20 billion. But the DART fleet is so well established, he can get around it again. All you're going to do is cripple your relationship with India, and it is a problem. Do not listen to them. You have not been negotiating with President Putin. Let me explain this one critical piece. We do business with China, and they have put all these horrific problems in our grid equipment, in our solar panels, and our windmills, and they could take out potentially a significant chunk of our grid. But yet we still do business with China. President Trump, go do business with President Putin. Get him to the table by doing what you do best. Do a deal with him. Work out how we can do joint deals in oil exploration in the Arctic so that we know we can control and minimize the impact of oil exploration in the Arctic with Russia. I would rather do business with Russia than I would do business with China. If you sanction India, it is going to go very badly. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. Extreme heat forces shut down nuclear reactors in Europe. This is a wake-up call for amid the U.S. grid overhaul. Holy smokes, Batman. This event comes at a time when France Nuclear's, the backbone of Europe's atomic energy, continues to operate below full capacity. Why? Lingering maintenance challenges stemming from past cost-cutting measures because the left government wanted to get rid of the nuclear, and they did that by defunding their maintenance. So the heat wave that swept across Europe in late June and early July pushed temperatures above 40 degrees Celsius, 104 in several regions, triggering wildfires, health alerts, and infrastructure problems. So they had too hot of water that they could not release it back out and could not cool it in. France, which derives 70% of its electricity from nuclear power, operates one of the world's largest fleets with 57 reactors compared to, I believe, the U.S.'s 98 reactors, totaling around 62.9 gigawatts of capacity. However, as of July of 2025, the fleet is not running at full throttle. Nuclear generation in the first half of 2025 showed improvement because they were adding maintenance dollars back in. So when you take a look at this, the U.S. grid should learn from the mistakes that France did. In stark contrast to Europe's nuclear hiccups, the United States is undergoing a significant grid transformation under the Trump administration. And I guarantee you this is pretty darn cool. I've interviewed James Walker, the CEO of Nano Nuclear, and the staff is rolling that podcast out on Friday. It is really cool to be able to visit with the CEO of a publicly traded nuclear company and how he is dealing with the Department of Energy, and what a great relationship that they are working on. They are doing it by the numbers and trying to get nuclear out. Way to go. But when you take a look at balancing the grid, we're going to have lots of natural gas. We're going to have regulatory overhaul like you wouldn't believe. And a shout out to David Blackman, because David Blackman is on the regulatory issues and he's got some great articles over on his Substack on that. Hey, I would like to give a shout out to Steve Reese and the gang over there at Reese Energy Consulting. I have a podcast with Steve Reese, Kimberly Page, Charlie Bird, and the Oil and Gas Association of West Virginia. That's coming out, may come out on Sunday or it may come out the following Friday. We'll have to see how the schedule on the staff goes. But when we take a look at if you're in the midstream space or if you're looking for natural gas, reach out to ReeseEnergyConsulting.com and go there. They've got all the information that you need in order to get to how you want to move your molecules from whatever play you're in. They can do it, and they know how to get you the most amount of money for your molecules. Let's go to this next story here. What is the future of the United States grid? Well, it involves a decentralized management, AI, and lots of privately held microgrids. I had fun putting this article together. And when you sit back and take a look, we're looking at a transformation of the United States grid, and the fast-moving Trump administration has taken a wrecking ball to take down the Obama-era regulations and handicap placed on the grid managers. How this is going to shake out is we're still trying to figure this out. I want to give Secretary Chris Wright a shout out because he is addressing the issues as they are coming up. Deloitte estimates that the U.S. AI data center power demand will balloon from 4 gigawatts in 2024 to 123 gigawatts by 2035, more than a 30-fold increase. That is ginormous, even by President Trump standards. EVs are another major factor with widespread adoption expected to not as a significant load as charging infrastructure expands. That one I'm going to put a hold on and say only if the price comes down and if new technology is coming along for batteries. However, this surge has challenges. 104 gigawatts of planned power plant retirements, mostly coal, by 2030 against the 22 gigawatt of new firm base load, which is part nuclear and mostly natural gas. You've got another 100 some odd gigawatts of wind and solar that are now looking like most of that 100 may not get installed because they're not going to be profitable without the subsidies. So we got us a gigawatt problem. Where's Christopher Lloyd when you need him? Because we were sitting there going, holy cow, 1721 gigawatts. Anyway, tech giants like, I don't have Michael to tell me to cut, and that was a horrible joke, but tech giants like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Meta are driving this trend with investments up to about $10 billion per facility to meet AI demands. Watch for this: decentralized grid management and a shift toward resilience. Here's what's going to happen. In the natural gas space, you have ERCOT, which is in the next story. We're going to go into that here in just a little bit. But you're going to see AI and data centers start fanning out and looking for natural gas plants that could be taken offline and they can be put behind a private meter for their data center only. Or they're going to find natural gas and then they're going to drop in their own generators and line them up. But you're going to need somebody that has definitely expertise in being able to redesign your microgrid. Call us if you've got that kind of a problem. Where investors can take advantage is huge. I'm watching NextEra Energy. I don't give investment advice, but I'll tell you what I'm looking at. GE Vernova, GEV, as well as Tesla. I'm looking at Tesla because they've got a new factory out here that they're looking at building battery in, I believe, the Detroit area. Pretty big from announcement out there. I believe Stanislav from Oil Price put that out. Outstanding article. So when we take a look, you're going to look at the new grid as decentralized, and you're going to have a lot of it, businesses putting their own power plants on there. So all these dedicated sources are now going to cause some other issues, as natural gas pipelines are going to be dedicating pipeline to a data center that would not be going out to the consumers, or you're going to have consumers not have access to steady, solid power, and they're going to be left to having all this wind and all this solar that is absolutely horrific as far as trying to balance it. So you're going to have a whole new way that the grid balancing authorities are going to have to look at. Is it behind a meter or is it out in here able to be used? It's a complicated process, and I guarantee it's going to get ugly. Is ERCOT in Texas set up for a crash? Doug Sheridan has some great points. Actually, you've got to follow Doug Sheridan on LinkedIn. He is one cool cat. And I'll tell you what, he's got some great points in here. All deep-pocketed tech giants like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Meta, in a race to master AI and willing to spend $10 billion. This is a number that is huge. Seems like plenty of opportunity for such a marketing play. To wit, ERCOT now lists over 170 gigawatt of committed resources for a system that has never hit 90 gigawatts of demand. You know why we have 170 gigawatts on the ERCOT system? Because of the wind and solar. For every time you put a windmill on there, you have to have 3 more windmills to generate the same amount or the same of the power. It used to be you could put 20% and call it good for what you had to overpower your grid. So you needed a set of 90 gigawatts, you needed 110 gigawatts, and you could take care of any emergency or anything else. Now that you've got all this wind and solar, the formula has gone to what they have had to put in, and that is you've got 90 gigawatts of demand, you have to pay for 170 gigawatts of committed resources in wind and solar, and then you have to have enough base load in nuclear, natural gas, or coal in order to balance this out. So people are not talking about the raw cost of wind and solar as it bloats up your grid and your grid management. In short, the Texas grid screams of capital and efficiency in every way. So why shouldn't owners of underutilized gas turbines trapped in renewable heavy system consider repurposing them to applications and locations that add value at a far greater extent than does Texas? Isn't that how markets are supposed to work? This is huge. Well done, Doug Sheridan. The bottom line, Texas hasn't had a good faith partner in gas-fired generators has not been a good partner for many years. So why shouldn't owners of the gas turbines trapped and mistreated by the state look elsewhere? That's a fantastic point, especially when we're on about a 4-year waiting list for some of those turbines. Move them somewhere else where you're going to get high bucks for them. Either America is in a race to win the AI race or it's not. Simple. It's either you're there or you're not. If we are, our guess is that there are many hurdles repurposing legacy turbines stranded on renewable heavy grids like Texas can be overcome more easily by deep pocketed tech companies. Maybe the tech companies are going to drop in a data center in Texas, pull that grid instead of moving it. You're going to drop in a data center, pull it off of the grid, and the local market loses that. So the losers are going to be the Texas citizens as they pay more as that natural gas power plant comes offline. Doug Sheridan hit it right out of the park with this one. So what we're finding in our day job is evaluating oil and gas deals is that it is critical to take a look at each well on its own, and the grid is going to be done in the same way. So as we take a look at a E&P operator's drilling program, we'll look at how many wells they're planning to do, their budget allocation, and say, wait a minute, how is this best done? What are your plans? What are your returns? And then we kind of try to back out and say, let's analyze where the money best utilized. This is the same way we've got to take a look and back up and say, wait a minute, how we've been managing the grid in the last 30 years has not been working for the best for the consumers. So, Secretary Wright, you are the right man for the right job at the right time. And I know that you're going to be all over all this. So, hey, with that, like, subscribe. If you want to know more about finding out some of the deals that we're working on out there, go to Energy Newsbeat /co invest in oil and let us know. Have a great day. Talk to you all soon.